Hello, welcome back, Bio30, for the last section of the lymphatic and immune system. We're going to talk about a couple of issues with our immune system here today. The first one is going to be the allergies that we can get. So, this is a hypersensitivity, this is an overreaction of your immune system. It's mediated by the IgE antibodies, and a response is going to happen very quickly. It's going to happen within a couple of seconds. And with allergies, what's happening is you have these allergens which are going to respond to the antibodies you have in your body network. They are connected to mast cells, which are going to release histamine. And as we know, histamine is going to trigger that inflammatory reaction. So it could happen in multiple places. On your skin, you end up with something called hay fever. If it happens in your airways, chances are you're probably asthmatic as well if you have these allergies. So you get an asthmatic attack. If this ends up further into your body, into your bloodstream, then you get something what's called an anaphylactic shock, which is the most serious one, where every body system starts to shut down. So it's good to have an EpiPen on hand if you do have allergies. This gives you a little bit more support until you can get some more professional medical care, so paramedics, hospital, to get your health back in order. But it's overall just an overreaction to some sort of allergen that's in and around you. Now, there's a possibility for you to get a delayed allergic response. This is where you get an allergic reaction, but it doesn't actually trigger until much later on. This will result in some red bumps on your skin, and we can use this for allergy testing. So, if we have a place in your body that doesn't have as many mast cells, or we can have a delayed allergic response, we can actually test out your allergies and determine which ones you can and can't be exposed to. Here on the image here, we can talk about sensitization, how you get sensitized to allergies, and then how you get exposed to them later on. We start off with here on the left-hand side an allergen, so in this case, the pollen grain. If this ends up being antigenic, then with your plasma cells, they are going to create these antibodies which bond onto mast cells. Not a big deal right now, but later on, when you are exposed to that same pollen, it's going to trigger these antibodies inside of the mast cells. The histamine is going to come out, and you're going to have an allergic response. Another issue you can have is a blood type reaction. As you're aware, we have this ABO system, which we talked about in our circulatory system. So, type A, type B, type AB, or type O blood, based on which antibodies you have. Because we're dealing with antibodies and, sorry, based on which antigens you have. Because we're dealing with antibodies and antigens, this ends up being a lymphatic issue. So, if you have the wrong type, you end up getting coagulation in your blood, which is something that you probably don't want. What's more serious, though, is this Rh network, which doesn't typically affect a person, but in those rare circumstances, let's say if a mother is Rh negative and she is pregnant with an Rh positive child, then there's a chance of some sort of negative reaction between the two. You end up with a hemolytic disease. The one that we talked about was erythroblastosis fetalis. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Here's an image that we talked about with blood typing earlier, though, so something that you might be familiar with already. Here we can take a peek and see what's going on here with the hemolytic disease. Baby, in this case, the fetus has the Rh positive gene, so it's producing the antigens. The female body has the antibodies. So the antibodies, when the blood leaches into her body system through the placenta, uh, her antibodies are going to deal with the antigen. No big deal. Problem is, if the antigen can leave the baby and enter the mother, the antibodies can leave the mother and enter the baby. So in this case, the baby ends up getting attacked, and then it could end up with a hemolytic disease. If this is something that's going to happen, oops, I went too far here. If this is something that's going to happen, we can use some medications to hopefully try to prevent this from happening. We can also induce an early pregnancy through cesarean section. That would get the baby on blood transfusions early, as opposed to having to continually fight off the mother's antibodies as it attacks the child. Here, I've also got another chart here. This is specifically for HIV, which is an immunodeficiency disorder. Just so you can walk through the HIV graph here, it might be a little easier to understand with the graph. Initially, this blue line is describing your antibody count. You can see it's very high, so you've got some protection in your body. Later on, through exposure to HIV, so if you contract the HIV virus, the human immunodeficiency virus, it attacks parts of your antibody network, attacks your helper T cells. So you can't even produce the antibodies. So initial response, you get a high concentration of HIV, your antibodies drop significantly. Now, as we continue forward, sorry, I keep saying antibodies, helper T cells drop significantly. But because your immune system is fighting off the virus, you notice the virus count also goes down. and your helper T cells seem to plateau. But you'll notice that not all the HIV viruses have been killed, so they slowly start to proliferate in numbers. As a result, these helper T cells keep getting shut off, so slowly you keep losing more and more of this immune system. At some point, there's a crossing over that happens. We call this category B. This is about halfway through a year of infection, and you have more HIV than you do helper T cells. And then at a very late stage, usually around 7 to 8 months, closer towards the end of the year, we say that you're going to be on AIDS. AIDS because your immune system is no longer functioning. Your antibody count, due to the helper T cells being killed off or made or rendered useless, coming down to zero. Um, HIV can proliferate in your body. It goes up to a very high concentration. And at this point, the only way that we can keep you safe with your immune system is if we inject or we give you pills of medications. These are aids for your body. So we say that you now have AIDS. A couple of other side effects that we can run into. One is called tissue rejection. This is when your cytotoxic T cells, they attack the antigens on other body tissues that don't belong to you. They're designed to attack things that are not supposed to be in your body. So it makes sense that somebody else's body tissue is probably not supposed to be in your body. In some circumstances, your body tissues might not be good enough, so we transplant somebody else's into your body. Problem here is that your cytotoxic T cells will fight that and destroy your own body tissue. Now, if we try to match that body tissue to what yours is like, try to get similar MHCs, try to get similar blood types, try to get similar gender, sex, body type, weight, height, size, all that stuff, then there's a chance that your body will not recognize the foreign tissue as somebody else's. It might think it's still yours, so it won't get attacked. Just to make sure this happens, we also try to give you some immunosuppressive drugs, weaken your immune system to get this tissue implanted into your body. So it's an issue that we have to deal with. But if we're careful about it and we do our due diligence, we can get some tissues that do work in your body. An alternative treatment that is becoming more prominent is called xenotransplantation, where we can take organs from other organisms that could work in humans as well. So we can breed pigs, for example, and use some of their body parts inside of our bodies if we breed them to be as similar as we need them to be. So, a couple of pieces that can help prevent tissue rejection here. Lastly, I've got some immunosystem diseases to talk about. There's some that are called autoimmune disorders or autoimmune diseases. This is when your cytotoxic T cells or antibodies are going to attack your own body cells. You can't really stop this. We can only manage and try to control it a little bit, alleviate some of the pain. A few examples are myasthenia gravis, where the junctions between your muscles and your neurons do not function anymore, so you can't send signals to your muscles. Similarly, MS, the neurons that have insulation called myelin sheath, the sheath gets damaged and scarred by your own immune system, so you can't send those electrical impulses throughout your body, those polarizations. You can get lupus, which has a lot of different signs that affect your skin and your body and your overall health. And then you have RA or rheumatoid arthritis, where your joints, quite often it's your knuckle joints, where the synovial fluid starts to dry up due to your body attacking it. And then your bones, which are supposed to be able to be pretty well lubricated and have very little friction against each other, now start to grind against cartilage, and there's a lot of pain involved with that. So autoimmune, not great. If you have it, it really sucks. We can only give you medications to manage the pain a little bit. We can't usually do too much else. Outside of management, there might be a couple of options. There's also some that are called immunodeficiency diseases. These are where your immune system is significantly weaker than it needs to be to protect your body. Often this is genetic, so you might be born with something like this, and it's just something that develops as you are born, as you grow older, as you become older, that sort of thing. Can be contracted as well. HIV is an example of an immune system disease, immunodeficiency disorder / disease that you can contract from somebody else. So just have to be aware of that. If this happens, we have to give you passive vaccinations and immunizations to protect your body. Anywho, this brings us to the end of the immune system and the lymphatic system. So we'll pause here. And if you ever need to go back, you can feel free to scroll on back through the video, pause wherever you need to. But we'll pick up on things with the urinary and excretory system in our next set of videos. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you in a little bit.